Hey everybody, today I've got an update on the Rover. Some of you have been asking for this for quite a while. I've been remiss to do it. I've been spending a lot of time on it. If you don't know about this Rover, check out my older videos. It's really a unique, fascinating car and super rare in the US. In this video, I try to get it ready for the road. So I'm looking at the brakes, the fuel system, a stuck rear wheel, the shifter, and all kinds of little things that I need to do before it gets on the road. Again, this is a super unique car. So check it out, subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this one. It's been a lot of fun working on this thing. See ya. Got the Rover up in the air. This is going to be the first time actually I've seen under it fully, because it's so low to the ground that you really can't see much. First order of business is find out why the transmission is not connected to the shifter inside. Everything about this car is just so different from anything I've used to. Here's the shifter. When I got the car, this moved and wouldn't do anything. Now suddenly it won't move at all. And the mechanism down in here is the shifter rod. It's got, I don't think you can see it. It's got like some kind of, see that thin piece of metal, that like a thin rod? It comes up and it goes around the shift lever, and that's what's holding it. But that is not connected to anything underneath. It's got to be part of the shifter mechanism up here. So I got to figure out what that thing is, and I don't have an explanation as to why this shifter wasn't doing anything before, because clearly it's engaged now. So I've started to take apart the console, but as you can imagine, I've never worked on something like this before. It's a challenge. I haven't figured out quite yet how it comes out, but I will. But underneath, what I'm going to do is disconnect the shifter from the transmission and see if I can shift it by hand. There is where the shifter comes down and connects to the transmission linkage. So I'm going to pull out that pin right there and see if then I can shift the transmission. So the pin is out. And the transmission shifts just fine. So if that's park where it was, that's reverse. That should be neutral. So, assuming that's true, I should be able to spin the rear wheels now. Let's see. Yep. Okay. How about the other one? I'm afraid the other one might just plain be stuck. Whoa. Yeah, this one's just plain stuck. Okay, so I've got to figure out that shifter, but at least I have it to the point where I know that why the rear wheels weren't turning, at least this one. Problem is not that small pin-like thing there. That moves just fine. I think the shifter itself, the shifter housing is like this brown bowl at the bottom, and I think that bowl is probably just full of corrosion. But I still can't explain why the shifter moved without actually doing anything before. It moved back and forth when I first got this car. You can see it in my other videos, and it didn't affect anything. So I'm at a loss as to what's going on here. But what I've done is in that little bowl at the bottom, let's see if I can show it to you here. Right down there. That's the bowl where the pivot is for the shifter. I'm just filling it up with Marble Mystery Oil and to see what happens. So it literally is like some kind of bowl where the fluid doesn't leak out, it's just sitting down there. And the thing with mystery oil is you have to let it sit. So it's been sitting there a bit. I'm going to see if I can move this thing. A little bit. Better than it was. But I don't want to break anything. Let me see if it's moving. I'm actually bending something. Boy, it's really hard to tell. I might not be moving anything here. I'm gonna have to get back and look at this. So I got the shifter plate off, and I got it off without breaking anything. It was only screwed on, and well, it wasn't screwed on. It was pressed in, and the front was glued and hooked, and the back just had these two pins. And I was able to get it out without breaking it, which is awesome because everything in this car is made of unobtainium, at least in the US. So I have to be super careful. The shifter is mounted with 3 screws. I don't think, though, I'm going to be able to get the shifter out with those 3 screws because the pivot is in the bottom of that cup and I can't get at that. But the cup itself is mounted with these screws. So, can I get those out? I probably can. They're all accessible. And then maybe it all comes out through the bottom, which means if that's true, I'll have to check it. But if it is true, then this handle has to come off somehow. And I see there's a little pin there. See that? And maybe that's what takes the handle off. But again, I don't know. This is certainly no 56 Chevy. Here's how the shifter comes out. It's got a roll pin in it that slides right through here. So all you do to get it out is the other side of the roll pin. You put a very small punch in and you just tap on the punch and it pulls the roll pin out. So then you take your punch out, and I'm thinking that this is hopefully going to just pop right off. Yep, it's coming off. It's off. Okay. So there's the hole for the roll pin. This is the punch side. This is the side where it comes out. All right, so now I can take this off. And I've got a much better view of what's going on in here. So I can take out these bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think this whole thing may have to take the shifter out, but I don't think so. The whole thing will pop through the bottom. Now the question is whether I can get it by the transmission or not. Hopefully I can. Love it when a plan comes together. Actually, I can't say that. I had no plan with this thing whatsoever. But this is the cup I was telling you about. There's the shifter rod that goes down to shift the actual transmission, connect to the linkage. And this is the shifter handle. It came out through the top, actually. I did have to take the shifter detent plate off, but it came out through the top. And as you can see, this thing is stuck solid. Stuck solid. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to free this up, I need to look more about how it's manufactured and such. But this is steel into aluminum, so you already get a problem there. That the I forget what it's called, electrolysis or something like that. The two dissimilar metals fuse together over time, and that's exactly what happened here. Again, I have no explanation why this was shifting before and doing nothing. It makes zero sense to me, but maybe I'll figure it out once I get it unseized. I've been letting this sit for a few days, just soaking in used Honda automatic transmission fluid. So why Honda automatic transmission fluid? There's no reason except I had it around and it seemed like it was a good solvent type of fluid. But I could be completely wrong. But it's been sitting there for days, and I'm going to pour it out and see if this thing will now move. It's cleaned out. So let me see if I can now. It's going to be tricky. Hold the phone and see if I can move this. Oh yeah, yeah, it's moving a bit. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So that's what it was. It was just seized up. Now that I get it moving, I'm going to oil it up some more and then put it back in. That's a nice achievement. I didn't have to even heat this. Back at the shifter, this has been sitting literally for over a month. And every week or so I would move it a bit. This handle was completely stuck. And look at it now. I mean, it is completely still. I didn't put heat on this. I just let it sit. It's sitting in used Honda transmission fluid. So I don't know if I'm onto some new lubricant. I doubt it. But this is ready to go in, and that's what's going to happen right now. So the shifter's in. I'm hoping to be able to get this brake drum off. It is stuck solid. There's a screw that, you know, anchors it there. I don't see anything else anywhere else. But with everything on this car, I'm flying blind. So I've got this huge gear puller on it, and just kind of gently putting some pressure on the gear puller while tapping around the hub to see if I can see it loosen up. I don't want to break anything. I don't want to break my puller nor damage anything. It's like I've said 100 times before. In the US, this car is made of unobtainium. I left the lug nuts on, but they're loose. I just don't want, should this come out, I don't want it flying out at me. It does appear to be coming out. Which would be real nice if I can get this off, because it's stuck hard. I'm not going to be able to drive this thing or even move it without this thing coming loose. Well, it certainly moves some. But not as much as I would think. I'm going to keep going, see what happens. What happens on these is the brakes fuse to the drum. In order to get the drum off, you're actually breaking parts inside the drum. the brake pads separate. Sometimes you pull the pins out, the springs, which I really don't want to do. But I don't have a lot of options. What I could try is just heating up the drum, which I might do, but you really need oxyacetylene for that, which I don't have. I'd have to use MAP gas, but I'm going to give this a try for another minute. I mean, it is, you can see, it is moving. But it appears to be taking the brake shoes with it. It's not really what I want it to do. This side, the brake shoes are staying. This side, not so much. I'm going to try to hammer actually in here a bit. Maybe I can break the shoes loose doing that. So I got it off with not much breakage, but check this weirdness out. The pads are on the bottom and the top rather than the sides. I've never seen anything like that before. The bottom and the top, there's a pivot there with 2 rivets, and the brake cylinder is there on the side. It's got the very typical brake retainer setup here with the little cup and the spring, which is here. So the pin's around somewhere. Maybe the pin broke, maybe it didn't, but that's parts I can get. So I'm not worried. But what a weird system. These brake pads are in fantastic shape. Fantastic. This one, that's interesting. This one is more worn than the top one. I guess maybe it gets more use. There, is this the other cup? Yeah, oh cool. So there's the other piece of the cup. So I've got both sides. I just need to find the pin somewhere. Here's the drum. Drum's in good shape. Of course, there's lots of rust and stuff in it, but it's in good shape. Very cool. Very cool. So I just need to find the pin that held this together. And I can put this back together once I figure out what to do with this brake cylinder, because I'm sure it's no good. Certainly doesn't look very good. What an interesting setup. Very interesting. This brake cylinder, instead of having like the arms that come out of it to grab the brakes, is just blunt. Very blunt objects that just push out of the brake cylinder. There's all kinds of dead spiders and stuff in here, of course. But success. This is off. And this is spinning. Yay! Yay! So finally, this car will roll. Boy, it's been a long time coming. So next step, I'm going to get after these brakes, see if I can find the pin that holds the shoe in. Now I'm on to the fuel lines. If you remember from the video where I got it started, I just plumbed in from a gas tank to the fuel line. I need to understand how these work, because I had the return still hooked to the tank and it was just burning gas like crazy that way. So this little deal here is at the bottom of the tank where the lines go in, bolted to the frame, and protects the lines. But I'm showing you this so you can get an idea of what it's like to work on this thing. Look at this. Everything under there is like that. This piece is not rusted through. It's just so full of dirt because the car was parked in such a place where it was, at least the very lower parts of the car were underwater at certain times of the year. It's amazing that there's not much rust under here. It's more like this, you know, just like scale. I mean, look at this thing. It's the pins that hold it in. They're all fine. Has no rod holes in it. So it's good news. It's just dirty, dirty, dirty under here doing anything. So here Here's the lines going into the tank. This is what that bracket thing was covering. So this is the main feed right here. That one. That is a huge line. And this is the return. This is the one I've been looking for right here, this steel line. So next time I fire it, I'm still going to run it off my gas can, but I'm going to have this return going into a can as well. The last thing I want to do is be putting more gas in this tank. I do have to drain the tank, and that job is coming soon. I have no idea how much gas is in it, but I know whatever's in it smells really bad. I've got the gas tank draining now. That's the inlet to the fuel pump right there. It's going real slow, but it's coming out fine. This stuff stinks really bad. It's an orangish color like you would expect from gas that's been sitting a long time. I'm going to let it drain. This is going to take a while. I've been draining the tank literally for days. It only comes out a small amount at a time, drip by drip. Here's one of the problems. This was sticking out of the feed to the car coming out of the tank. I mean, I don't know what that is. It's got a little bit of give to it like rubber, but it's also fairly hard. If the bottom of the tank is full of that, I don't think I'll be able to salvage this tank in any way, shape, or form, but that's for the future. Everything about this car is unique. This is the airbox where the air cleaner goes. Look at that. AC Delco, made in England. And I took it out because I had no idea what condition the filters would be in. I'm not sure. You probably can't see in there. See that? The filters are like brand new on both sides. The inlet and the outlet. Unbelievable. I mean, I don't see any acorns in there or anything. And it's just crazy, some things on this car. It was very well maintained, no doubt about it. Another interesting thing is what holds this in is one bolt on the bottom. It slides in here, and there's one bolt on the bottom that's got a wing nut on it, and that holds the whole assembly in. I didn't know any of that. It's a learning experience every bolt that I turn on this thing. Check out what came in the mail today. This is awesome. This is straight from the UK, and it's the brake parts for my Rover. Most notably, the rebuild kit for the master cylinder. The master cylinder is not available. I've not been able to find it anywhere in the world, but they do have a kit, so I'm going to use that kit, rebuild this master cylinder, and I also have a couple of brake hoses. These are looking pretty bad, so I'm going to change those as well. And then we'll see. We'll test out the calipers and all and see if we have any stuck. I think the lines are going to be fine. There's just not enough rust on this car. I know it looks terrible, but it's just not that rusty to blow a line. So let's get rolling. Kind of a letdown. This is the master cylinder rebuild kit. Now, I know it's usually made up of rubbers and washers, but this is kind of expensive for what you get. Here's one of the two hoses. I believe they're both the same. This is pretty cool. I mean, this has been on a shelf a very long time. Look at that. Just from hanging out. So this is probably an original part. And I've got two of them to do both sides. So what I'm going to do is the master cylinder here. Take the two lines off. I've already lubed them up, and take the bolt off there and the bolt off there to pull it out. The top of this master cylinder is in really bad shape. It's all crunched and broken. I have not been able to find this either, but I think I can rebuild this. with some fiberglass laminate. I'm pretty sure that I can rebuild that. But the symptoms that I have are that the pedal moves. It was stuck, but it does move, but absolutely nothing happens. It goes to the floor and nothing happens. And it's not losing fluid. It's got plenty of fluid in it, so it's not leaking anywhere. It's just completely bypassing inside the master cylinder because these rubbers are bad. These lines are a little bit tighter than I expected. I'm just giving them a little tap. See if I can loosen them up. Kind of hard to do with the phone, but basically I'm just going to tap on this a little bit. Okay, I got both lines loose and unfortunately put my thumb on top of the master cylinder cap and it's just so brittle. It went through and literally I was just barely resting my thumb on it. That's all right. I knew I'd have to work with this, so once I get it all out, I'll figure that out. These nuts here, I'm not sure what the engineers were thinking. Those nuts are right up against the master cylinder itself. I don't know, I think you can see that. So you can't get a socket or an open end around them, or a closed end around them. You have to use an open end, and it only fits one way, or the open end hits the master cylinder as well. So this is going to take me a few minutes to get out. I've got them loose, so I know it'll come out. It's just going to take a few minutes. It's almost ready to come out. I position that camera as best I can for you to see what's going on. It's going to make a mess, so I've got this bucket here to catch all the fluid because not only are the lines going to be off, but the master cylinder fluid reservoir is just so short, it's going to leak all over the place. Really nice that nothing snapped off these lines and all that. And everything's coming off relatively easily. When you work on a car from another country like this, it's not like working on a Japanese car. This is just so different from anything I've ever wrenched on before. It's a learning experience, and it's kind of neat to see how other people think from different parts of the world, and how they do things. Like I say, this is very unlike working on a Japanese car. I've done that, and there's a lot of similarities between American cars and Japanese cars, but not this thing. This thing is just completely different from anything I've worked on. All right, let's see if I can get this thing out of here now. Okay, a couple of wires have to come undone. Should have thought of that ahead of time and didn't. Okay, the one with the plastic goes in front. The one without the plastic goes in back. And there's another set of wires underneath. Another plug. Oh boy, this is making an incredible mess because I didn't realize there were any wires underneath. Okay, get that unplugged. The brake fluid in it it's not dirty, but it's orange. I don't know if that's a UK thing. I doubt it. I think it's just kind of like rust. Oh boy, look at that. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to grab the camera to show you that. That tells me all I need to know. Let me grab the camera here. Show you that. That's the back of the reservoir. Completely rusted out, completely. Really kind of amazing given that's so protected being inside the vehicle, but it's shot. It's no wonder that the rubbers inside are shot. There is a possibility that this master cylinder is so scored inside that I won't be able to use it. But I'm going to think positive that that's not the case. So this is it. It's out. It's a little thing, but very different. You know, this plastic thing that is half destroyed. It looks like it's attached with a rivet there and some kind of rivet with a tag on it on the other side. What I'm going to try to do is leave the sides of it intact and rebuild a new cover with fiberglass mat. We'll see how well that works. But now we're on to the rebuild. So like many conventional master cylinders, this is the first step. This little spring clip which fits right in there. The way you take that out is with a tool like this. Right, you just squeeze it together. This guy, I think, is homemade. It looks like someone welded these things on here, but this thing is just ingenious. I've used it so many times. I picked this up at an estate sale for like 50 cents, not knowing what I'd use it for, and I've used it so many times for these snap rings. So maybe this gives you guys an idea if you have an old set of pliers. You can just weld on these two tips like this and make these spring clip removers with it. So as you can imagine, this piston was stuck in the bore. Even without the spring clip, it wouldn't come out. So I just took a socket and just tapped on it to get it to compress and pop a few times. Compress down, have the spring push it back, and it's almost ready to come out now. But it's very, very corroded. Very corroded. So I'm going to have to get a different tool to pull this out. Okay, it's coming out now. That is black like oil. This is what's coming out of it. I don't know why that's so black, but I suspect it's probably deteriorating rubber mixed with brake fluid. By the way, this stuff is corrosive as anything to paint, so don't let this get on any paint. Wow, this thing is really bad. Interesting though, it wasn't leaking past this end seal. I guess that's a good sign. And the fact that it is coming out at all is a good sign as well, because sometimes they don't. That 1980 Ford pickup that you can see the video of where I do the master cylinder, the inside of that piston never came out. Still got it on the floor in this garage here somewhere. Okay. So that's the first part of the piston. I believe there's also a second part that's still in there. But this doesn't look too bad. Let's see how it feels. It's very, very dirty inside. Very dirty. So it's very hard for me to tell what condition this bore is in because there's just so much dirt in here. But as you can imagine, it's not great. There's no way it would be, or I wouldn't be changing this. I wouldn't be rebuilding it. Okay, I'm going to clean this up and get back to you. This has been quite a hassle. There's a bolt here and a bolt here that hold this guy on, and they were seized tight. So of course the head stripped out, so I ended up having a drill which weakened it, and then I was able to get it out. So now I know what thread it is and all, and I can get a new bolt. This one was even more difficult. This I had to drill the entire head off and twist it out with vice grips. There's also a little pin right here that I didn't know about that goes in a hole in there. You can't really see it in the light, but that holds the inner piston in. So I pulled that out, but the inner piston is still stuck down in there. So I'm going to let it sit overnight in some mystery oil, and hopefully I can free it. It's moving. it just won't move enough to come out, even with compressed air. So we'll see what happens once I let it sit. At long last, I'm ready to put this master cylinder back together. Here is the primary piston, secondary piston, and rebuild kit. Rebuild kit's not much, as I showed you earlier. It's basically rubbers. I still have to do this, but I'm going to do that after I get this together, probably later today. Never done a foreign master cylinder rebuild before, but going to give it a try. Basically, you have to just replace all these rubbers, making sure to put them the right way, and get the springs in right, and then put it all back together. Also, I did hone out the cylinders with this brake hone. I had to, didn't want to, but there was some rust in between where the pistons ride. So you've got the piston there, and that space in between, there was rust. And I don't want to rip up the rubber boot going down into the cylinder, so I had to do it. Okay, master cylinder is all together. What a hassle. What a hassle. Still need to get these bolts. This one's too long. That's the original. Still need to get those, but I can get those anywhere. Now I'm moving over to the brake hoses in the front. So here's the brake hose installed. Real simple. If you can get to it, it's simple. And I was able to get to it. There is no clip. You know, those crazy clips that often spin and rust and everything else and that comes out. All there is a nut. I don't know if you can see that right there. That's a nut. It's not a piece of the hose. So you just stick the hose in and tighten the nut. And it's like that on both sides. So it's easy. It's honestly a better system than I've seen from Ford and GM as far as ease of removal. And there's a star washer on each side to keep the nuts from backing out. So I've showed you the brake hose before, but that's all it is. It's threaded on each end. Left and right's the same, and you just put the nut on and tighten it up. The fitting on the end, is, you know, a little different, but that's okay. It all works. Both hoses out, changed, and just shot. Completely shot. Even if they didn't leak, I don't think they would have pushed fluid, especially the driver's side. It was completely dry. So once I finish the master cylinder, I can try these brakes out. All right, the rebuilt master cylinder is in. Looks a little bit like Frankenstein's monster. I'll give you that. The sides weren't leaking, so I didn't have to do too much with the fiberglass there, but I did have to rebuild the complete top with fiberglass mat. And I fiberglassed in the threads so I could use the existing cap. I don't know if any of this is going to work. The bore was a little bit scored inside. I did some tests with brake fluid and it didn't seem to eat the fiberglass, which is good. But the fiberglass is not touching anything. It's primarily on the top. So hopefully it won't cause any problems. But my tests came through okay. I'm more worried about the master itself. I wasn't able to bench bleed it on the bench. It just wouldn't act correctly. So I'm going to try to bench bleed it here. These fittings are super loose, so they'll pass air no problem. So no matter what I do, I can't get pressure built up in this system. I'm not sure what it is. What I think is the master cylinder rebuild kit was really crappy, really cheap, and the rubbers just don't seem to be sealing well on the inside of the master cylinder. It was a bit scored, but I honed it out and it looked a lot better, but it just won't build pressure. So I've got some decisions to make on this car. It still needs a lot of work. I haven't even been able to drive it yet, and it's giving me problems starting. I just need to make some decisions on what to do with it and take it from there. More later. Hey everybody, made a big decision. I've decided to sell the Rover. This has been a cool car. For those of you that aren't familiar with my videos on it, they make a good set. Give them a look. I got this at an estate sale auction. The owner had passed away and the family was selling off all his assets, of which this was one. I was one of two bidders. The other bidder was a junkyard. I didn't know it at the time, but had I not won this, it would have been crushed, and that would have been a shame. Super rare in the US, less than 1,200 brought in, probably less than 100 exist today. But I just can't give it the time that it needs. I don't have the connections for the knowledge, the parts, etc. And I've sold it to someone that is a real British car buff. He knows these cars really, really well, and he's going to restore it. He's not going to pull the engine out and keep the Buick V8 like many people do. He's going to leave it as it is, and he's just going to get it back on the road, which this car deserves. It's too rare and too special to be put aside, to be scrapped, whatever. So this one's going. Whenever you get rid of a car, many of you will know this, whenever you get rid of a car, it's hard. Sometimes you create an attachment with it, of which I definitely have with this, the amount of hours I've spent on this thing. But I don't have all the room in the world, and I have to be practical about it, and it just gives me more room for something new, which I'm really looking forward to. So this is the last look at it. Goodbye to the Rover, and thanks for watching.